Good evening everyone, or good morning, depending on whatever time you're watching this video or whatever part of the world you live in. It's Sam here, back for a Brony UK video, and I haven't done one for a while, so I'm going to do one, naturally. I've got two others planned, which I will be doing as soon as the material is done that I need, because I have material for it that hasn't arrived yet or haven't finished with yet, but I will be doing videos later on. But anyway, what is this video about? Well, in a nutshell, it's about the My Little Pony film. The My Little Pony movie. In a nutshell, I want to talk about the film in general, the plot, obviously, and we'll probably mention as well as to how it all connects into Season 8. I just literally watched the first episode of Season 8 tonight, loving it so far. Let's talk about the film, which I will admit fully that me and my good friend John, the co-host of this channel, saw at the cinema 3 times. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. We have no lives. It's just work, ponies, anime, reading books, you know, just chilling, general. But we saw this film 3 times at the cinema. Now, on a side note, I just want to mention something really quick about the second time I went to see it with my good mate John. John, you may remember this because this particular person was 2 rows in front of us. But when we went to see it the second time, there was a lady 2 rows in front of us with her daughter, who was about 4 or 5. And literally, when me and John walked in and sat down, she just threw an evil dagger glare at us. And she spent most of the film actually glaring at us. And then when it finished and we were leaving, she left just as we did, and she was literally still glaring at us. It's like, oh my god, you know, 2 adult men watching this film. Oh god, you must be sick people. No, we're just bronies. We love MLP. We went to see the film because we really wanted to see it. But anyway, on to the film itself. Let's just discuss the film in general. So, largely, it starts, the opening, I love the opening. The opening was upbeat, strong, and it really got me happy. It made me feel happy and it got me in the mood for the film. Had that really good little song, Pony's Got the Beat, which was just great. I know it was like 30-40 seconds, but it is a good little intro. You get to see a couple of G1 characters that are brought into the film, and they're flying through, and you're seeing Equestria, and you see Canterlot. It's a really nice little intro. Basically, you find out that Twilight is arranging and planned the very first Festival of Friendship. Makes sense, she's a Princess of Friendship, it makes perfect sense that she would do that. So, she is about to ask Celestia, Luna and Cadence for a huge favour. She's freaking out as she always does, and Spike, as he always does, is just advising her. He's like, Twilight, you're a princess too. You know, you stand on equal ground with these 3. You can do this. Obviously, in Twilight fashion, goes off the tandem, explains a big plan. Cadence and Luna are like, oh, she's having another crazy thing again. Celestia, you do know how to pick 'em, don't you? And Celestia is just her usual motherly self, just laughing gently. And after Twilight has said, you know, basically, I just need your help. Will you do this for me? I have saved Equestria several times now. I've literally saved Celestia and Luna's life. Like, I've saved your lives at least twice. And all 3 of you at least once. You kind of owe me. Celestia laughs, chuckles, all smiles, and basically says, sod off, Twilight. I owe you, Equestria owes you, but I ain't going to help you. So Twilight goes away, kind of upset actually, quite disappointed really. And then she meets up with the rest of the main 6, and they sing a song. But it's ponies, it's Equestria, it's MLP, and the music is what we love. Dial Ingram is just a genius. He has written so many great songs, so many pieces of music for that show. Keep on doing it, mate. So they're basically singing a song about how Twilight has got this, how she can do this, and how they're all friends and friends help each other. So after that, everything's happy, everything's great, and boom. I was going to cut my hand louder there, but you know, boom, typical MLP style, something goes wrong. So all of a sudden, a big airship shows up. It brings with it stormy clouds, and unfortunately, as it lands, Brian the Balloon Pony is killed. He is crushed by the airship. And then out comes. We're not going to go into too much detail, you know, we're not going to talk about all the characters, but out comes Tempest Shadow, and she means business. She basically wants the magic of the princesses, and it just so happens that all 4 princesses happen to meet her as she comes down the ramp from the airship. Now, just to point out, you would think after several years, by season account, of evil stuff happening, of Nightmare Moon, Discord, all the evil stuff that Twilight and her friends end up beating, you'd think Celestia would be prepared for an event like this. You would think she would be ready to fight and at last be the leader. No. Twilight, Celestia, Luna, Cadence, they're beaten. Quite easily, as always. But before that, before Luna is defeated and turned to stone with the rest of the princesses, apart from Twilight, Celestia tells Luna to head to the Badlands and find the Queen of the Hippos, which it sounds like hippos. So after Celestia, Luna and Cadence are frozen in marbly stone, the main 6, along with Spike, are blasted into a river and are swept away. So afterwards, Twilight's feeling rather down, the main 6 are feeling rather down, but Twilight being Twilight, no, we can do this. Celestia said find the Queen of the Hippos, we have to leave Equestria and find the Hippos. Meanwhile, you find out that Tempest Shadow is serving the Storm King, who, in a nutshell, is kind of a representation of merchandising, crossed over with a critic. Because he comes across as being like a merchandising critic, because he references MLP in a way that a critic and a merchandiser would. It's actually quite funny. He's not a serious villain. In real truth, the villain in this film is Tempest. But anyway, digress. So basically, Tempest kind of doesn't tell the Storm King that, you know, we don't have all the princesses, but just give me like 3 days, and, you know, when you arrive in 3 days, everything will be peachy. She goes off to find the main 6, who at this point have crossed the desert and have shown up at Club Town, which is kind of like a put together, falling apart settlement that's full of traders and scavengers, and it's a very scum and villainy Star Warsy feel to it. And there they meet Kappa, who is an anthropomorphic cat, who is a very smooth talker, and he basically befriends them, makes Spike jealous because he's smooth talking rarity, and then he sings a song about them needing a friend, and that he is the friend they need. And when he gets back to his place, well, long story short, it turns out that they're looking for the hippogriffs, who live on Mount Ares. And Twilight is obviously suspicious of Kappa, for good reason as well, because 5 minutes later, this guy shows up. Turns out Kappa owes a lot of money. He was going to sell the main 6 because of their magic and settle his debts. However, Tempest shows up after tracking them down to Club Town, and the main 6 have to make a run for it. Now, Rarity being Rarity during this particular scene, she repairs Kappa's jacket. As a result of his coat being repaired, when the main 6 have run off, he doesn't tell Tempest where they're going. He just says, "Oh, they're heading east." Just heading east. The main 6 end up on board an airship, and they are discovered by its crew. And before they're thrown off the plank, in true MLP fashion, they're saved by a random coincidence, that is, the crew stop for lunch. During lunch, it turns out that they actually used to be pirates. Now, here's a side note, people. If you haven't read the prequel comic to the film, you need to read it, because it basically explains in a nutshell how all the characters are kind of linked to the Storm King. During this scene, you find out that they used to be pirates, and yet now they're hauling merchandise for the Storm King. So Rainbow Dash sings a really great song. Yes, John, it is a really great song. I will admit that it is a really good song about being awesome. The pirates get the mojo back, and they're willing to help them. However, Rainbow Dash lets loose a sonic rainboom, and that leads Tempest straight to them. After escaping in a daring hot air balloon escape, you really feel for Spike after that, because pretty much Twilight uses Spike as like an emergency flamethrower to heat the balloon to make it work, and it leaves him looking rather ill. And everyone just kind of ignores the poor little dragon, and Fluttershy's the only one that seems to really be worried about him. They travel on, they get to Mount Eris. However, it turns out that the hippogriffs are gone. It looks like they've been gone for a while. They follow this, they look around, and they end up hearing some singing. And they follow, and they find a mysterious being who jumps into the water. They end up basically getting sucked into the water, get knocked out, wake up with air bubbles around their heads, and then they meet Princess Skystar, who is basically a sea pony. And she takes them to Queen Nova, who's her mother, and you basically find out that the sea ponies actually used to be the hippogriffs, but through the use of a magic pearl, they turn themselves into sea ponies to hide from the Storm King. Twilight tries to persuade Queen Nova to let them use the pearl so they can fight the Storm King, but she won't let her because, she doesn't want the Storm King to get hold of the pearl. So Twilight kind of tricks her friends to, go and befriend Skyfire, and, Pinkie Pie sings a really great jazz song about pretty much how one small thing can fix anything, and it's a great song, and it kind of makes Queen Nova decide, I'm going to help this lot, I'm going to help them. However, Twilight being Twilight decides, you know what, I've got to steal this pearl, I've got to do this, I've got to save Equestria. It all goes tits up, they get caught, they get kicked out of the Sea Pony Kingdom, and then they end up having a big argument. Twilight is very much like, this is serious, we can't just sing songs and make friends, we have to save Equestria. I have to save Equestria. Celestia indebted this to me. As always, Twilight, you're far too serious. Your friends are there for you. And you could have got Queen Nova's help if you'd just been patient. So after the argument, they break apart, and Twilight is captured by Tempest. And then Tempest sings this really great song, which in a nutshell is kind of not only is about her past, but also kind of shows about how not everything in life is for granted. You don't always get what you want. Life isn't always fair. And Twilight needs to accept that. Twilight needs to accept life isn't always fair. So after the song, they arrive back at Equestria to find that it's now under the Storm King's control. Meanwhile, the main six end up meeting up with all the characters they met throughout the film. So Kappa, the pirates, and Starfire. They then head off to save Twilight. Now, I must say, at the point where Twilight goes back to Canterlot, it actually gets a bit dark, because all the ponies have basically been enslaved. And when I say enslaved, I mean proper enslavement. They've literally got, chains around them, they've got metal, muzzle head masks on, and they're basically being forced to serve the head of the Storm King's henchmen. I mean, it gets pretty dark for a kids' film, but hey, you need a bit of darkness now and then. So Twilight is delivered to the Storm King, where you find out that basically he wants to absorb the magic of the four princesses, so he can basically have ultimate power. And Tempest was serving him with the hopes that he would repair her broken horn. She does have a broken horn, I probably should have mentioned that. But anyway, after he absorbs the power, surprise, surprise, he basically doesn't care about Tempest and he goes power mad. The remainder of the main characters show up. An awesome MLP style fight ensues, which at one point has Pinkie Pie give a present to one of the Storm King's goons. He opens it and she jumps out of it and starts pelting him with cupcakes. But it's Pinkie Pie, so we accept it. After they break through the Storm King's henchmen, there's a typical fight with the Storm King. At one point it looks like Twilight and Storm King have been gotten rid of. It looks like they've been sucked into a storm and are no more. However, Twilight shows up moments later with the staff. Basically, It looks like all is well, and then the Storm King suddenly appears, and he's going to effectively try and turn Twilight into a friend into stone. However, Tempest intervenes, gets turned into stone, so does the Storm King. Now, the Storm King ends up shattering into a million bits, so he effectively dies, but Tempest is saved by the main six. And then, in a nutshell, they use the staff to revert the power back to the princesses, to save Equestria. Tempest redeems herself. All is well. I mean, in a nutshell, that was pretty quick, but that is more or less the film. So even though I've given you a brief breakdown of the film, let's talk about just how the film impacts the fan base. Specifically, I want to talk about how the advertising worked, because the advertising campaign for the My Little Pony the movie was very much trying to bring in more fans. It was basically saying, you know, come and watch this film. Heroes don't have to be Batman, they don't have to be Iron Man, they don't have to be some super powered thing. They can be ponies, they can be awesome ponies. To discover a new breed of hero. That title, Discover a New Breed of Hero, that was what the film was all about. And it did create more bronies, it created more fans of the show through the film. And in a way, that was the point of the film. I mean, the film happened because of us, because of the brony fan base, because we wanted a film. It gave us a film. In a sense, the MLP film is everything it needed to be, but so much more. It created more fans, it gave us, in a way, the prelude to Season 8. Because as I said, Season 8 literally picks up where the film finishes. So I am looking forward to seeing if any of the characters in the film show up. They've pretty much already hinted that Tempest Shadow will show up, so looking forward to that. The other thing I would definitely have to say, there's probably only one thing about the film that I generally felt a bit down about. I was kind of hoping that Spike would get his moment, that he'd really be fleshed out in the film, and he wasn't. He felt very much like a tag-along character. And I really feel like Spike... I know I've heard Spike is meant to get a lot of development in Season 8, and he needs it. He's a character that's been there since the beginning. He's been with Twilight for a long time. And it feels like his character kind of gets wasted a lot of the time. I feel like he should be doing more. In the film, he's just there. He doesn't really do anything in the film, and you kind of feel like you could take Spike out of the film and the film wouldn't be any different. All in all, the film is generally great. It's a great film, it's got great music, great dialogue, great plot. Comedy is just right as it should be in an MLP film. And it sets up Season 8, because as I said, Season 8 picks up right after the film ends. Even though the film was, in a way, one big advertisement for the franchise, and it did create more fans, it's enjoyable. It's a feel-good film, and I love feel-good films. So I generally... I'm looking forward to Season 8. I've watched the next 2 episodes. I'm looking forward to the sequel, because there is going to be a sequel to the film. And I would hire people, if you're not familiar with MLP, pick up a copy of the film, because this basically gives you everything you need to in a film. And after that, start watching Season 1 upwards. So, this has been me, Sam, talking about the MLP film on the Brony UK channel. I hope you've enjoyed. Good night. Peace out.